All right, guys. Hopefully, everybody had a fantastic weekend, and we are back to go at it and have a conversation about what the market is doing, how it is working, and how we can make better real estate agents out of all of you. Now, the benefit of this is that I get to make myself a better agent by trying to find knowledge and power for you. And one of those things that tends to happen, especially now that we've gotten out of our 2020 year and back into a traditional or more organized year, we are getting into what is effectively conference season. So as we go into conference season, the conversation kind of goes into this simple basis. What are you going to learn? When are you going to learn it? How are you going to wrap yourself around this conversation of increasing your knowledge based on others' mistakes, right? So my Uncle Dan used to tell me very simply that you should never learn from your own mistakes because they will cost you way more and it will take a lot more time to get through said mistakes. So I've tried to adopt the principle that I learned from other people's mistakes by learning from them and finding out how it worked for them. And if something didn't work, finding out if I could put it into aspect in a different manner to work. One of the best places to do that is in a conference. So I just recently came back from a conference, so about 4 days out of town. I went to Fargo, North Dakota, and I know that sounds exhilarating, but the truth of the matter is that it's the people that you surround yourself with that actually make something exhilarating. You could be in a closed off room with no windows for a couple hours, but with the right people, this can be a really power impact for you in this process. Now, what does that mean to you and how do you kind of put that into play? Well, to learn from others means that you have to have an open mind. You have to walk into it without the idea that you know everything about everything. I tend to tell people that if you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably the dumbest because you're the one that's not willing to learn and hear from other people. So remember, you have to open your mind to it. You have to have an idea of what you're trying to put into aspect. So do it correctly, do it appropriately, but also understand that to learn from others, you have to be open-minded and you have to also be willing to accept some things that may feel uncomfortable. The concept of burning the bridges or burning the boats is the concept of moving past something that you can't go back to. And oftentimes in real estate, we tend to hold on to things like production. We tend to hold on to things like the full control of the transaction, when sometimes we need to understand that learning from others and seeing proof in concept, letting them make the mistakes first, sometimes can open a dialogue that will grow your small business into an actual business that makes money for you without necessarily having to be in it. Now, with that, you have to find like mindset conferences. Okay. So there are people that love Grant Cardone. There are people that hate Grant Cardone. There are people that love Tony Robbins, and there are people that hate Tony Robbins. You have to find a like mindset of the conference that you're deciding to go to. And if you find that like mindset, you will find like people that will help you through the process that you want to grow with. If you go to certain conferences, they will in flux and tell you that the only way to be successful is growth. But growth is not always the only way to success. Some people find success just in more profit rather than growth. And you can find more profit without growth if you look at it the right way. So remember, finding a like mindset of the people around you. A lot of conferences that are in the brand or franchise model tend to be focused on numbers. They tend to celebrate just numbers, production, volume, and so on and so forth. Sometimes that's not what you want to be around because that's not the mindset that you tend to operate in. Or it is the mindset that you operate in, and you need to surround yourself by that. Remember, we become the product of the 5 people that we hang out the most. Well, guess what? If you go to conferences and find people of like mind, then that will be what helps you grow to a mindset that fits you. Now, with that, be careful. One thing that I strongly suggest is that you will get tons of information. And if you have a team like me, I think that my team almost dreads the concept of me coming back from a conference because I'm going to try and overload them with all my new things. Be cautious about blowing up your team every time you go to a conference. Remember that you need to identify 1 or 2 things that you can implement now. Now, I'm not telling you just to identify one thing. because one thing tends to run you down a gambit that all that other stuff that you may have learned in the conference won't be effective in the future. The truth is just keep organized, roll in the one thing that you identified, and then go back to the drawing board, look at your notes, make sure your notes are effective, maybe reach back out to the presenter or the person that you learned it from, and then you can implement the second thing, allowing one conference or one conference season to fill that entire line. Because remember, when we are in a scaling growth, we need to understand that we have a CEO mindset. Now, I know CEO in the real estate game in Texas is a little dangerous to say, but you need to have that mindset that is thinking towards the future, because if you're thinking in the just here and now, you might get lost in the whirlwind of things that happen. So remember, the one thing is something that you can implement today, and then once you implement it fully, go back to the drawing board, maybe pull one or two additional items out of that, and that way you can be successful moving forward for longevity by using the same conference to help you grow. Now, how many conferences should you go to? How many things should you go to? That really is based on you. Remember, this is going to separate you from family time. I know that I become very anxious at the end of a conference because I just want to get home. In fact, I told my wife this time that I actually went to the airport about a half an hour early, and I sat at the airport, which is something she knows I hate to do, but I was so anxious to get home that I wanted to do that. So just be cautious to not overload yourself as much as you may be overloading a team, because you might just push yourself to a point where you're not going to receive or adapt to any new knowledge because you've actually just overwhelmed yourself. So be careful with that. Now, it's that one thing time, right? It's how do you implement it? What do you do, and how do you actionably make it work? Be cautious. Remember, don't implode your team. Don't explode your team. Make sure that you are working on that one thing corrective. Make sure you translate it the right way, because oftentimes something that you might have learned might sound like a defensive mechanism to the people that are around you. So be cautious of that, because remember, they're operating in their atmosphere. You've put yourself in a different atmosphere, but that does not mean that you can just come in and expose them to all the stuff that you got and they're going to automatically be on board. You have to have overall gaining into that one thing so you can grow forward. So remember, if you implement it, just make sure you're implementing it in a fashion that makes sense to everybody else around you. All right. Now, I reminded you of this earlier. We are a product of those people that we keep around us. So one thing that I think is oftentimes forgotten, we may make great introductions at conferences. We need to prolong those introductions to relationships and then hopefully friendships, because you will never fail to realize that those people will grow with you or they will fail with you, but they will be there with you throughout the entire process. And they can oftentimes be that person that can say, I did it. It didn't work, but then I made this and this and this to change it, and it worked dramatically well. So making sure that you surround those people around you that may be not necessarily in the same market, may not necessarily be in the same level of production as you, but may be great resources to help you grow and to be surrounded by. Because remember, the people that are going to conferences, there was a statistic that came out some time ago that of the people that survive in real estate, most of them gain knowledge from outside sources. Now, I consider outside sources conferences or other adaptation of teachers, coaches, and stuff like that. But most of that is defined by learning about other information. So conferences are a great resource, and knowledge can gain from that based on going out to other places and looking at the concept different. El Paso real estate is completely different than most of the rest of the United States. And for me to understand that, but also to help and bring in things that may adapt to that, can be really successful. All right, so guys, with that, I just want to kind of leave you with a couple of last final notes. Number one, make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that have already made the mistakes, because if they've made the mistakes, you can learn from them and you can move past them very easily. Number two, make sure that you get yourself out there. Make sure that you don't go shelter yourself in your hotel room while you're at these conferences. I'm not telling you to go down to the bar and mingle. I'm telling you to go down to the bar and mingle, not necessarily drinking, not necessarily indulging, but find find those people that you can find the best knowledge from. A lot of times people say, well, I didn't learn anything in the main room of the conference, but I learned this, this, and this by just talking to somebody. Remember, you have to have that dialogue for people to know the specifics of your example and to also know the specifics of their example. Oftentimes, the main stage is just a regurgitation of things that you already know, but you need to have that motivation coming back from a conference to put it into action. And then the last thing is, guys, be responsible about it. I'm not telling you to go spend $5,000, $10,000, $100,000 on conferences. What I'm telling you is make sure that they fit your level of production or just above your level of production, because you want to be surrounded by people that are going to help you grow, whether that be by production or that be by profit or that just simply be by mindset, help you grow in the right direction. Guys, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you always. And if you have any questions, never hesitate, 915-751-1500. And remember to tune in to our other two series with our Tea with Andrew on Wednesday, which is at 3 o'clock Mountain Time, or to our fundamentals class, which is on 2 o'clock Thursday Mountain Time as well. And that is with Kent and Andrew, where they're going through how to build a sustainable business. Guys, thank you for your time. Have a great day. See you later.